I am James O'Neill, and today I want to talk about joy. And I want to give you 3 ingredients for joyful classrooms. But before I get into joy, I want to give you my joy story, the day I found joy. And finding joy is a journey. And sometimes you got to go through some things in order to get to the place of joy. And so I want to share with you, with your permission, do I have your permission? Okay. A poetic monologue or a spoken word of the day I found joy, how one teacher's expectation of me changed my life. Sitting in class, watching those who are the complexion of the opposite leave. As they relieve themselves from being in class full of those who are the complexion of me. It wasn't hard to see that the inequality symbols that I was learning in math, these symbols not only applied to numbers. I found out quickly that these symbols, they applied to colors. Shades of brown, invisibly crowned with dunce, became fitted to heads that seemed to learn at exponentially slower rates than others. Though we were an integrated school, the gifted segregated themselves through the white flight of Jim Crow's wings, enacting their civil rights of separate but equal PLCs that excluded NAACPs because where I was from, this practice of separation was the norm. Until one young white lady who taught Algebra 1 in 8th grade gave 2 black boys a math test that went against the pedagogy of low expectations. I know y'all laughing at me. She saw in us the same desire to learn. It was just wrapped in brown skin that identified as black. She chose to see color because she recognized that everyone that was in her advanced math classes of Algebra 1, they were white. She chose to rescue us from a curriculum that handed out 6 degrees of separation: Southern, Black, poor, male, non-gifted, therefore unlikely. She changed my best friend Chester and my life. It wasn't as if I didn't believe I could do it. She believed I could. Her expectations of me tore down walls built by bricks of shame, inequity, and I asked myself on the daily, what's wrong with me? Her expectations of me exposed me to a land of possibilities found only in books where fairy tales exist, and those that were asleep there were awakened by a kiss. She became the Peter Pan to 2 lost boys, giving us access to Neverland. In this land where I had never been, all those that were there were expected to succeed. They were expected in high school to take honors and AP courses, something I never knew anything about. One of the proudest moments of my life was walking down my high school hallway with my mom during freshman orientation when a welcoming tone of normalcy reached out to me like a slick arm stretch at the movies and said, "Hi, I'm your freshman English 9 teacher." In one split second, the eloquence of Malcolm, the bravery of Rosa, the champion of Du Bois courageously spoke, "No, ma'am, you see, I have honors." After being on this earth for 15 years, it was in that English honors class that I learned about the Holocaust through our summer book reading night by Elie Wiesel. All I had ever known about was the enslavement of Africans. I had no clue that darkness had descended upon the face of people whose skin complexion was the very opposite of the book's name. Listen, this blew my mind as the winds of equity began to thrust me into competitive GPAs of those of my white peers, because honors and AP courses gave you a half to a whole grade point. Could this be one reason why black and brown faces perform so poorly? Because the bandwidth that was carrying our information was on dial-up speed, while fibers of interconnected networks sped up the advancement of those privy to a system that supported them and not those that looked like me. The expectations of my teacher had me in class asking Ashley Woolard for homemade deer jerky because it was hunting season in North Carolina. I don't think that y'all know I'm trying to be funny here, so let me just come out and say it like I really mean it. Black people don't hunt. I know somebody's like, no, James, you cannot say that. We are not a monolith, so let's do some math. If this screen represented all the black people in America, this would be the percentage of us that hunt. Now I'm accurate. This was my exposure to diversity. But in all seriousness, I began to walk a trail of tears, this time paved by my ancestors. Just to be draped in cords, these cords shackled them, yet these cords loosed me to pursue the dreams of a king. In 8th grade, I fell in love with math and found joy in education again. And for over 15 and a half years, I found myself teaching in the same grade and subject where one teacher's expectations of me changed the course of my life. And for that, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, Mrs. Simmons. Can we give it up for Mrs. Simmons? So today I said it's not about a sit and get for me. That's the day I found joy. So I have a question for you. Latrell has already set us up. She already took us to church. So we're going to turn and talk to your neighbor. If you've never been to a black church, you might not get the reference. We turn and talk to our neighbors a lot when you come to a black church. Look at your neighbor, look at your neighbor, look at your neighbor. We just do that a lot. I think we invented the think, pair, share, or the pair, share part. We definitely invented that part, okay? So we got one more think, pair, share for you today. I want you to talk about for the next 3 minutes, who was your Mrs. Simmons? Find your neighbor and share who was your Mrs. Simmons, who brought joy in education in your life. Ready, set, go. Sharing is definitely Karen today. I hope you had a chance to go back down memory lane and just to bring up that feeling, that joyfulness, whatever that person did for you in education, and maybe that's the reason why you're doing what you're doing or trying to emulate what you're doing. Mrs. Simmons was a marker for me in my life. And then when I became a math teacher, I wanted to be Mrs. Simmons times 100 because that's what she was for me. And so when I think about joy, I think about many moments in education, but I just want to highlight 3 moments where I feel like we can land on where we find joy in education. The first moment, a lot of us just experienced this not too long ago. It's this moment right here. The last day of school. Listen, I love y'all, but I got to go. I love y'all, I love what I do, but I need a break. Like, there is joy about understanding that there is a date that we count down to, and we're joyful. And in our school, we used to wave the kids goodbye, be like, as they leave on the buses. I thought that was a cute thing, but it was just my last release. Bye-bye, y'all. We love you, we love you. Another moment I thought about when I think about joy is this moment right here. When you finally got that room set up for the first day of school, after all those meetings and those PDs and those things you got to watch, and just like, y'all, I just want to get to my room. I just want to set up my room. But when it's set, there ain't no feeling like that feeling knowing that my room is set and I'm ready to go. And then the last feeling of joy that I know that many of you all have experienced is this moment right here. Blank did not come to school today. And we're not stingy with that joy. Be like, girl, guess who's not here today? Like, we're gonna share that joy with our colleagues. I love you, but I need a break. Listen, I love you, but this relationship, I wish you well. Like, 2 days, I just need 2 days. But there are moments of joy, and this is a joyful moment because, it brings joy to my soul, all right? And so, when I think about joy in education, and I think about what the research says, joy and motivation seems to go hand in hand. I'm usually not motivated to do something that I don't find joy in. And many times when I'm talking to teachers or leaders or just doing professional development or workshops, people bring me in to talk about what do kids need in order to be motivated or engaged, or what did you do? And they just want me to share things. And I wanted to dive into the research. Research, over 150 studies, said that these things are necessary for there to be motivation in a classroom. The first thing that it said is that first, teachers are far more influential than parents in motivating students to learn. And I think sometimes we research things that are common sense, but we just have to say, well, the data says, to make it hit a little different. But if my mom came to school, I bet she could get me to learn. If she came to school every day and sat beside me, my mom, Ruby O'Neill, would have a wonderful way of motivating me to learn. But she could not do that. And so what the research said is that the most powerful person in that room is that teacher. That is what the research says. Despite all the stripping away of the power that the society is trying to do, teachers are the most powerful people in that room. Raise your hand if you're a teacher. Say this affirmation after me. Say this: I am powerful. Raise your hand if you support teachers, teacher leaders. Say this affirmation after me. I support power. The most powerful person in that room is that educator. That's what the research said. The research went on to say that there are 3 psychological needs that help increase student motivation. Again, I'm saying motivation or joy are like besties. And so if these needs are being met, competence, belonging, and autonomy, Latrell has already walked all up in my little keynote today, and talked about this, so it's a good segue into this, that if these needs are being met in a classroom, then motivation, and dare I say joy, will go up to another level. And so, in my business, I operate in a framework called Math Made Easy. Now, I know some of y'all here that are like, easy and math, goodness well, they don't go together. But I talk about how the ease of math happens when it makes sense. A lot of people don't like math because it doesn't make sense to them. But if it makes sense, there is an ease that comes along with mathematics. And so in my business, I center this framework about examining, approaching, shifting, and then ultimately having an impact. So the first thing we do is we're going to take an examination on these 3 things: mindsets, instructional delivery, data, and systems. Because if we're going to try to change something without an examination, we're going to get the same thing over and over and over again. After we take a deep examination, then we start to approach based on the data that we've received from the examination. So we approach the mathematics in a more equitable way. We have those courageous conversations. We look at routines that increase math identity. And though I'm talking about math, ELA, whatever content you teach, this framework will work. All you got to do is insert your content there. And then we look to shift, because we can't keep approaching things over and over again. We have to land somewhere. So we shift the very things that we look to examine. to ultimately have an impact. And I'm unapologetic about the impact that I want to have. I want to have the impact for all by impacting the demographic that when I go to different schools and I ask, let me see your data of the lowest performing demographic in your school, many times it's our black boys. So we can't say all if they're never a part of the equation. So I want to impact all by impacting the success of our black boys, by supporting their educators, increasing their math identities, and their college and career readiness when we think about what they're ready for in real life. And so today I'm going to pretend like we're one huge PLC, and we've been walking through the framework, and we have looked at the examination process, we have looked at the approach, and now we're landing on what to shift. Everybody say shift. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to do some shifting. But before we start to shift, I want to ground us in this disclaimer. Content is king. I am not going to talk about how to teach it. I'm not going to talk about those things as far as the pedagogy around it. I'm going to tell you that us knowing our content and our standards, that should be the floor. How we engage our kids in what we know. Many times we know all the things, but they know none of the things we're trying to get them to know because they don't want to know it. How do we change that? How do we change their mindset? How do we support that mindset journey? That is what I want to talk about today, but content is king. That's the place we start. We know our content, but how do we deliver it in a way that is that our students can receive it? So, we're going to talk about creating a culture of joy. Now, if that little girl didn't bring a smile on your face, listen, I got some work to do, or I'm just not your guy. Because I can't look at that little girl's face and not smile because she's the cutest little thing. Like, I want to talk about creating a culture of joy, but tying it to what the research says, that these three needs are needed: competence, belonging, and autonomy. What could that look like in a classroom? So, we're working in the framework. Everybody say shift. And we're going to shift specifically teacher and student mindsets by supporting it with the psychological need of competence. Now, let's read this definition together and see why, if I'm competent, why would I run into joy? On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. The ability to do something successfully or efficiently. Did y'all read with me? Okay. I'm just too loud. I was like, Lord, they left me up here by myself. Ain't nobody reading with me? Okay, all right, I just didn't hear. Okay, cool. All right, so the way that I increase competence is through what I call, and I show teachers and leaders through what I call peer pressure. Many of us have become the voice of why. Why should you do your homework? Why you should show up? Why you should bring your materials in class? I want to take that voice not away from us, but I want to put that same voice in students. What can we do to center student voices so that they are encouraging each other what a great mathematician looks like? What does a great writer look like? What do you have to do to be a great reader? I want to put that back on them. And so one of the ways that I do and center student voice through peer pressure is through testimonials. I literally have my students create testimonials of why they have been successful in class. And so in North Carolina, where are my North Carolina people at? Thank you for not leaving me hanging. I appreciate y'all. Okay, in North Carolina, we have these terms as far as our state tests. We have EOCs, that's the end of course testing. Usually after a high school course, there is a state test sometimes. And then we have EOGs, which is our end of grade testing. At the time these videos were made, the range of scores ranged from a 1 to a 5. If you were 1 and 2, you were non-proficient. 3, 4, 5, 5 was the highest, you were proficient. And this in both of these categories. So right in the middle of sheltering in place, I had this idea that I was going to be one of those YouTube teachers that say, look at what I'm doing in class. And I created 5 videos that showed like what I thought was innovative in some of the things that I felt like were working. And then we went to teach online through Zoom. And guess what? I didn't want to see a computer screen a day in my life. I gave up that dream so quick. I was like, there is no way that I'm going to sit on Zoom all this time and then get off and get back on the computer to edit videos and sit in front of a screen. No. I got to find something else to do. So I took a pivot, and that was a word in my district. Like every time, pivot. We have to pivot during the pandemic. And so I took a pivot, and I want to show you all how I use peer pressure to lift students through this video right here. Students that have been successful in my classroom make a video answering the following questions. I assign this video testimonial as a homework assignment. Students write down the questions to the video, and then they write down the answers to the questions based on what their peers said. Here are some examples. What were your last year's EOG achievement?
In 7th grade, my EOG score was a 2, and in 8th grade, my EOG score was a 4.
My EOG score was a 5 in the 90th percentile, but with Mr. O'Neill, I shot up to a 5 in the 97th percentile, which was really good.
I shot from a 4 in the 75th percentile to a 5 in the 91st.
In 7th grade, I got a 2 on my math EOG, and in 8th grade, I got a 5.
In 7th grade, I scored in the 89th percentile with a 5. My 8th grade year, I scored in the 99th percentile.
What did you do to jump so much?
Tutoring. Tutoring helps so much. When you can go to Mr. O'Neill and get help before you take the test or before you start class, that helps you get ahead of your class, and that also helps you learn what you didn't learn the day before.
I just had to stay on top of my work and make sure that I turned everything in on time. And I just had to do my homework and pay attention. I just had to keep at it, because in 7th grade I didn't do that.
My class had a math group chat. So if someone didn't understand, someone else who did understand could explain to them.
When did you start believing that you could do this?
I feel like I really didn't start believing in myself until the beginning of 4th quarter when I had that C. Mom made me go to tutoring, started pushing myself, got to the test, and look where I am now. Got a 5.
I didn't really believe that I could strive for excellence. I just went for being average. As the year went on, well, my average, it went up, and I thought I could get a 5 on the EOG. So I started applying myself in class, and Lord and behold, I actually got a 5 on the EOG.
What advice would you give to other students?
If you can, look up the 8th grade released EOG test and study it, because it truly helps. It gets you in the mind of, oh, this is what the test's gonna be like. This is why I have to study.
Don't cheat, because then you won't know what you need to work on, what you need to ask in class the next day. And that ties along with asking questions, and the questions tie along to with you reaching your goal.
Admit you can't figure out a concept and ask for help. And make sure you practice that concept until you get it. Enjoy the fun moments in class, but also focus during the educational ones. It'll really help you on the EOG.
And if you guys stay focused, study, and ask questions, then you and your score will skyrocket to the top. Peace out.
The power of this is that students just don't hear it from me. They see students that look just like them. I mean, these are the same kids that they saw in 8th grade last year talking about what it means to be successful. And the most powerful thing about it is that everyone gets to see growth on every level. Teachers, that's how you effectively use peer pressure. Appreciate that. Shout out to those kids. So why am I doing this? Many times people come into math believing that their story from last year has to be their story this year. And that doesn't have to be the case. And so they don't believe that they can. And hearing it from me over and over again it's like, yeah, I heard it all before. But when they hear their former friends or current friends, when they hear it from their brother, their sister, their cousins, the person they used to date because it's middle school, like when they hear it from them, it's just like it hits a little different because I'm centering their voice. And so our learning platform was Canvas, and what I literally did was took a video. In North Carolina, we do something right as far as when we test. We test at the end of the year. I've been in some other districts, we test in April, and I'm just like, April? And we got May and June left though? I don't understand. Oh, anyway, that's another story. But we also get unofficial scores back. So I literally stop kids and be like, you grew. And what I hear from the kids, now, this is an approach that I did because I wanted to shift competence. It doesn't have to look like this. And I support teachers doing their approach their way. But what I start hearing kids say to me was like, Mr. O'Neill, I'm going to be a testimonial this year. And I'm like, oh, okay. Or I'll start leaning in and be like, I need you to be a testimony. Be like, I got you, Mr. O'Neill. I'm going to show up. And so it started to change what they believed was possible. Everybody say shift. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about shifting to bring out joy is this, what we call instructional practice. And we're going to shift this by lifting the psychological need of belonging. Why would belonging bring joy? I'm so glad you asked. Let's read the definition together. 1, 2, 3, an affinity for a place or situation. I heard y'all that time. All right. And so belonging is something that is near and dear to my heart, because if you heard my joy story, I didn't believe I belonged. And so it is something for me that lands. And something that I've noticed along the years is that not teachers, but parents literally show up the first day of open house telling me, you know, this new math y'all teaching, Mr. O'Neill, I can't help my child. Like, I don't know what y'all doing. I can't get with it. Like, they're literally showing me their math identity, and they just met me. And they're telling me, I don't like it. I didn't get it when I was in school. I don't expect them to get it. They're literally telling me what they believe about it. And so I try to find spaces where I can extend what's happening to the classroom into the home, with what's something I call extra credit, and how I support teachers in actually seeing moments like this. So I'm not going to trigger some of you all, but some of you all may get triggered a little bit. All right, exponent rules. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay, so when I learned exponent rules, my teacher told me, you just have to remember the rules. And if you don't know the rules, you're not going to be able to do any of the math. Now, I did not know why the rules work, because that wasn't the thing. Back then, teachers were God, and whatever they said, you did. Whatever they said was true, you just believe it. Nobody questioned them, especially in the South. We didn't even believe in questioning God. Like, that doesn't make no sense. I don't know where that came from. But anyway, and so we were told that just to memorize this. But what I didn't know was, why is anything raised to the 0 power 1? That made no sense to me when I became a teacher. And so I went on my why journey, and I want to tell everybody, you will feel so much empowered when you can make sense of why you do what you do. There's something you walk in differently. So on my why journey, I wanted to know, why was anything raised to the 0 power 1? So I looked, math is all about patterns and repetition. So if we move down the powers, everybody, with these arrows, there is a operational pattern that produces 8 to 4, 4 to 2, and some of y'all may see it right now, okay? And I heard somebody say, what are we doing? Dividing by 2. So if you divide by 2, 8 becomes 4 by dividing by 2. 4 becomes 2 by dividing by 2. 2 has to become what number? Because 2 divided by 2 is what? 1. We start to make sense a little bit as to, I get 1. You may not know why, but you can see if the pattern continues, I get 1. Now, you can divide by 2 or multiply by 1/2. Or you can look again and see the same thing. As I move down the base, I literally am dividing by the base, and I end up getting 1. And so what happens is, in my world, I now know why something exists, and I can't keep that to myself because it's joyful. I stand on something that makes sense. And even in these rules, you can literally teach the product rule, the quotient rule, the 0 power rule, and the negative rule just by going up and down. Because as you go up, you add and you're multiplying. As you go down, you're dividing, you're subtracting. And you can see the 1 and what it means to have a negative exponent. All, and make sense of all the rules right there. But after we make sense of that, I wanted to find a space. How can I bring this to life? And that's what I try to tell teachers. It's not a dog and pony show every day, but every now and then, I like a good dog and pony show. I like a little excitement, right? Just every now and then. So I created hand movements that I'm going to share with you all today. I told y'all this is not a sit and get, so it's time to stand and get. Everybody on your feet. On your feet, on your feet. All right, now shake it off, because some of y'all a little tense because you feel like you're about to do something crazy. Some of y'all been shaking all week, so this is nothing new for you, okay? No judgment here, no judgment here. All right, so I need you all to do what I do and say what I say. The first rule is the product rule. It's basically saying, when you multiply by like bases, you're going to keep the base and add the exponents. And I'm going to show you these hand movements. Are y'all ready? If you're ready, say yeah. Okay, so repeat after me and do what I do. When you multiply by like bases, you keep the base and add the exponents. Y'all look amazing. That's the first rule, and that's the first hand rule. Multiply, add, and keep. That is what that rule says. We're going to move to the power rule. Everybody put your hands up like here, like this. These are your parameters. Please, repeat after me and do what I do. When you raise a power to a power, you keep the base and distribute the exponents. Class, what operation is this? Multiplication, and that's exactly what we see happening in the rule. All right, now we're going to go to the quotient rule. Everybody look at me, don't do anything, just look at me for right now, just look at me. So this is going to represent my fraction bar. Y'all can pause, even though I see some of y'all putting your arms up, but I ain't going to call you out. It's okay, it's whatever, you do you, all right? So this is your fraction bar. This is our fraction bar, our numerator and our denominator. Every fraction is what operation, class? Division. Okay, everybody put your fraction bars up. All right, repeat after me and do what I do. When you divide by like bases, you keep the base and you subtract the exponents. If you don't know what you just did, you did a dab. You did a dab, and you may have a seat. So what I do is I teach my kids these rules, and I tell them to go home and show their parents the rules, make a video, and you get extra credit. Now, it doesn't have to be parents. It might be a student that I don't teach. It might be a brother, a sister. Just introduce this to someone, and I have an exemplar video for you now.
All right, you ready?
Ready, fam?
All right, here we go.
Good.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, let's go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, multiply, keep the same base, added. Parentheses, keep the same base, distribute. Divide, keep the same base, subtract. Let's go, break it down, break it down. Ho!
Hey!
That's joy. That's joy from a parent who may not ever know why we do what we do, right? But is just wanting to be engaged with their child at this level and is finding joy in math again. Again, what this could look like. And so my last shift, everybody say shift. We're going to shift classroom culture by upholding the psychological need of autonomy. Okay? And so let's read this definition on the count of 3 together. 1, 2, 3. The right or condition of self-government. So with autonomy, you're telling me, oh, you believe that I have a right to make my own decisions. I get a choice in this. I feel like I'm being heard. And in those moments when I'm used to being shut down, joy and motivation is being lifted. And so one of the things that I do with autonomy is through student surveys. Again, my approach doesn't have to be everybody's approach, but the psychological need is there. How are we going to do that within our spheres of education? And so with student surveys, now I'm going to give you all this disclaimer, and I'm going to say this, and I mean it from my heart. I do not believe that we can say we care about kids if we never ask them their impact, our impact on them. Like, I don't believe we can say we care if we never ask, how do you feel about the culture? How do you feel about my teaching? How do you feel about our relationship? Like, if we don't know what they feel, because intent and impact sometimes does not align. And sometimes you don't know that because you haven't asked. So about 5 years in, I started asking my kids about the culture of my classroom, the way I teach, the relationships that I have. Now, usually when I do this, I get administrators to be like, my teachers ain't ready for that, James. And I'm just like, that's fine, because what I'm going to show you is a list of things that I literally do at the end of the quarter, but you can start with one question, right? And so here are my questions that I ask my students. Please rate the learning experience of this classroom, 1 being worst, 10 being best. Now, if I just saw a kid in the hallway talking on their phone, and I just took their phone before they entered my class, guess what they're giving me today? And we called them before outliers, right? You got me, you gave me a 1 today because middle school kids are petty, and they'll be like, listen, you got my phone, you are at a 1. I don't care what you're talking about. I don't care about anything you've done for me in the past, you got my phone. And then I go on to ask things like, do you feel that I care about you as a person? Please state why. Do you feel that I treat students fairly? Please provide examples. Since you've been in my class, what is one method of teaching that works for you? Do you like my classroom environment? Please take note. I'm not asking if you like math. It's super important. There's a difference. And then lastly, I asked them, what do you think, this is my favorite question, even though you can't see it because of the captions, what do you think as a teacher that I could do better? I asked them that because I know that intent and impact does not always align. And if I'm really in this for you, I want to know how you feel about our interactions. And so I want to tell you about Tamaya. Tamaya took this survey, and I do this on SurveyMonkey, and it's anonymous, and none of the kids know. But Tamaya's, Latrell talked about triggers. One of my teacher triggers is when I'm doing all this teaching or facilitating learning, and you just back there having your whole little conversation and not paying attention. Woo, that triggers me, y'all. It triggers me. It triggers me. Like, I'm like, for real? That's what you're going to do while I'm up here teaching? Like, it triggers me. So Tamaya was one of those students, was a talker. And it doesn't matter where I move Tamaya around the room, she's going to find something to talk about and to talk to, even if you didn't say anything back. So when Tamaya took, now I told y'all this anonymous, so y'all like, how do you know? Because, when Tamaya wrote her feedback, she said, I don't think you like me because I feel like you single me out. And based on what she said in her feedback, she said, this is a red flag for me, because you say I'm talking when I'm not talking. I was like, girl, Lord, I know your voice. I see your mouth moving. And your voice, it stands out because I know it now, because you use it all the time, right? And so I'm just like, okay, that's the way she feels. So what I did the next day, I showed up to class and I said, there's somebody in here that I don't know who it is because these surveys are anonymous. And I said, Lord, forgive me because I know exactly who I'm talking about. But I said, there's someone in here that thinks that I don't like you. And I want to tell you openly that I love everybody in here. What I don't like is if I'm teaching and there's distraction, somebody's not learning. I don't like showing up to work and you're not getting the education that I know you deserve. And so that's why I fight so hard to make sure that y'all understand and you're in a culture that you understand. And so what I do, and right then and there, I told her, without her knowing, that he cares. And that's all she needed. And the very next day and couple of weeks, I couldn't keep Tamaya out my face. Mr. O'Neill, where you going? What you doing? If I'm teaching in class and somebody's talking, Tamaya's like, y'all be quiet because I need to learn today. Because she's going to be heard, but now she's advocating me. What did I create? I created a culture where I said, your voice matters. And it brought joy to her life knowing that my teacher cares about me. Everything that I'm sharing with you today is not something that's been fluff. I've seen this in my life. On my journey, as I close, I started off and I left Pittsburgh and I came back to North Carolina to become a teacher. And my first year, my data was really good. But I'm going to tell y'all something. In North Carolina, and Pennsylvania don't have the same standards. North Carolina has integrated math. So literally, I was teaching things that I did not know how to teach. Exponential functions. I was like, what is this? I ain't never seen this a day in my life. Like, I was just like, I don't remember this. But I did my best, and my data, I've been teaching for 8 years. It was pretty good. But when I started using these cultures, my data did this the very next year. And I thought it because I found my tribe of kids. And I was just like, I don't know. I found the kids that get me. And then the very next year, this happens. And what I discovered is that content mixed up with the skill and the culture to change what students believe, when that comes together, it's game on. Somebody's life is about to be changed. And then y'all know, pandemic happened, and then this happened. I'm just being real. But one thing I point out is that this data is higher than the first year data when I had them face to face. And then the hardest year ever is when we came back and we began to teach and socially distancing. Y'all, I don't know no year like 2021, 2022 school year. It was crazy. But the data went in the direction it needed to go because of the cultures. Raise your hand if you've gotten anything out of this today. Anything. Well, I need your help. I'm going to create a space for you to give me feedback on this keynote. And I would love for you, and this is my closing, to get out your phone and just scan the QR code, or if the QR code is not working because of the caption right there, maybe, I don't know, you can go to the actual link right there. And for the next minute and a half, I would love for you to do that, and then I'll return and say goodbye. I just want to end with these points right here. Teachers, you are the most powerful person in that room. Build your power. Leaders support that power. Research really believes that there are 3 psychological needs that are necessary for motivation and joy. How will you continue to build competence? What does belonging look like in your classroom, in your school? What does autonomy look like? And lastly, will you take the challenge to support teachers as they change the lives of kids for the better? I really appreciate you all today, and I just want to say thank you, and let's continue to bring joy in our classrooms. Thank you so much, everybody.